Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL for 5% off your order. We're also sponsored by Quiver Time, makers of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine card holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their site for 10% off your purchase. And by Architect, a deck hosting website that doesn't sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them for all your deck list needs. Now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc. and Architect. Today, I have a returning guest who I really enjoyed, and I thought it would be fun to bring back to the new video era of Casual Magic. My dear friend and like everybody's most favorite content creator, Saffron Olive, probably lesser known as Seth. Hi, Seth.
Oh, hey Shivam, how are you? I'm super excited to be back. It's cool to be here for the video era. I just learned about this. I hadn't known you're doing video now. That's super awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I'm still doing a podcast first, so people still need to read the cards. But I was convinced by a bunch of people that, hey, if you're doing YouTube and you put your face on the picture, people will enjoy it more. And I'm like, I guess I'll enter this new era of content one way or another. Let me just adjust the camera a smidge. Yeah, I'm still
And
like getting used to it because I'm not used to looking at this camera and not, doing things like eating or things that
I
I can get away with off cam.
yeah, for the longest time, when I first started doing content, I didn't have a cam for anything on YouTube videos, on streams, and I think there was kind of this mystique almost that people mention now, like you were this weird, like just this program in the computer that played magic.
Disembodied voice.
Yeah, basically just like floating around playing Magic. And then I did a Super League, I think, one of the like vintage Super Leagues or something.
Yeah.
That's the and ever since I was on cam for that, I was just like, all right, at this point, we might as well just do the cam for everything. So
Man, the Vintage Super League was such a cool little event. I loved those Super Leagues
I
when
miss it.
Randy Bueller was running them. Like, it was just so much fun to watch people play Vintage. You don't get to do that very often. It's a shame that they
No,
stopped those, man.
I miss those too. They were really fun community events too. They did modern and limited and
Yeah.
vintage, and it would a lot of people would show up to the stream, and it was just a really fun like community vibe. So I miss those too. I don't think they'll come back at this point because I think Athena did a lot of the
Yeah.
behind the scenes stuff, and now she's at WotC, so that kind of
Yeah.
like I think is part of why they're not happening anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, Bueller ran out of time and he didn't have the technical skill to begin with. You're right. It was Athena doing all of that, and that's part of what
oh,
got her into WotC in the first place. And now
it
she's
was a
like amazing over there.
She's so good. It blew me away the first time we did a Super League and just like her production abilities
Oh
and just
yeah.
keeping everything running. Oh, so good at that. Blew me away for sure.
Man, I wonder if there's a way for somebody else to just pick that up and just do a super league, but it's so much work and like but at the same time, I love those kind of events. I miss like community driven. I mean, I help run Commander, so obviously I love community driven events and things, but it was just really cool to see. You guys should do that. Like have Goldfish do like a I don't know, random just vintage invitational for funsies
We've talked about doing something like
or
that.
any
We always get
invitational.
yeah, like an invitational or some sort of community event or a super league event. We always get stuck on just like the amount of effort. None of us have the like
Yeah.
expertise of running tournaments. So especially for us, it would be a lot of work, but maybe we'll actually do it at some point because I think it
Uh,
could be really sweet if we could pull it
yeah.
off.
Like, it doesn't even need to be for prizes or anything. It just needs to be for like, I won this time. Like
Yeah,
people just want to have like
exactly.
the chance to play their favorite formats, right? I think it's fun. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, actually, that's a good segue into like the question I wanted to ask you this time because you've been doing content and streaming for a very long time, and we talked about that a lot when you were here the last time. But I'm just curious, specifically, what's it been like since the pandemic started to have like doing content full time and trying to like keep this going? Because one of the things I've noticed is like a lot of us who are content creators got huge bumps because people were at home and had nothing to do, and we were like the only entertainment around. And, I'm just
Yeah.
curious, what's the, experience been like for you?
Yeah, so it definitely has been interesting. I think there was a huge boon and interest of like gaming, and people are stuck at home and content. So I think in a weird way, going into the pandemic, when it first was becoming like a public thing and everyone was talking about it, I was a little nervous. Like, what does this mean? I think everyone was like, it was just
Yeah.
such a time in the world. But it's like, is this going to be a good thing for content, a bad thing for content? And I think in the end, I mean, obviously, I wish we didn't have a pandemic, but in the end, I
Yeah.
think it ended up being like a positive in some ways for content because people were stuck home and looking for something to do. So I don't think my day-to-day life changed too much. That's what I have the most like pandemic proof job because I'm in my
Yeah,
house like recording
right?
content all day anyway. So I'm like, oh sure, I'll stay at home for a month on end. Like, sure, that's that's my normal life. So so yeah, but
It's funny though, because like you say that, but I remember right when lockdown started, and I was talking to a bunch of our friends, and they're like, "Oh gosh, I guess I will stay at home in my
yeah.
room and not talk
Oh,
to anybody and play games all day with the camera on." Huh?
yeah. Oh,
Life is
yes.
hard.
Yeah, this is so tough. Yeah. So I mean, in some ways, super lucky out of all the jobs in the world. I think making
Right?
content's one of the better ones to go through a pandemic in. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes from now. We've seen some of this with like card prices too, where there was a big boost in
Oh
card
yeah.
prices as people were like buying stuff during the pandemic. They're stuck at home and building decks or collecting. And now things are starting to like taper off a little bit. Do you think it's going to head back the other direction now that things are opening up and people aren't stuck back home? Like, was this a temporary boost as people were stuck at home? Or do you think some of that momentum for content is going to continue now that people have maybe discovered your podcast for the first time or discovered my videos for the first time during the pandemic?
I think that we're going to have an interesting challenge ahead of us because there's definitely going to be people making choices, right? Like people aren't going to have the freedom to watch 30 different streams anymore or listen to like a dozen podcasts. Actually, one thing is weird is that I noticed that podcasts went down because people were not commuting, but video streams and stuff went up because people were stuck at
Yep.
home. Now I think we're going to see a little bit more normalization. I think we're going to see people picking up podcasts again as they start to have to drive places. But it's
Mm.
going to be weird because a lot of people are just like, I'm working from home. I'm hybrid. I'm not doing this. I'm not going anywhere because I don't want to drive an hour to work. So us who are audio focused are going to feel a lot of hits from this, which is part of why I started shifting over to moving stuff to YouTube. Um, because of the fact that like when you're not driving or when you don't have a commute, like podcasts thrive because America's got a commute driven culture. Because people
Yeah.
drive places and have something to listen to. Streams thrive because we were at home and like I would be on my Excel sheet and behind me would be, loading ready run playing magic or something.
Yep.
And like I could get away with that at work. Um, and I think we're going to see a lot more people finding streams, finding YouTube, and podcasts are probably going to pick up, but not as much as they did. And like cards, I think a lot. I think we're going to see cards taper off. I think we're not going to see like the kind of crazy spikes we did when people were just buying up their collections from when they were 12 and wanted to have magic cards again. Because I think all those people got that out of their system. I think we're not
Yeah.
going to see like the crazy like reserve list spikes anymore. But I don't. Those prices aren't going to go back down. Card prices never go
No.
down, right? Like,
Oh, no, no, that is true.
yeah.
I mean, unless spikes is probably a good thing, like, overall, like, I would be happier if people did not have to pay $1,000 for a Gaia's Cradle or whatever, so the more we don't have to deal with those spikes, probably, the better for the community, I would say.
I I think like one of the big things that happened over pandemic, especially, was the normalization of proxies, right? Like
Yep,
because people ended up with, we're playing games on Spell Table, we're playing things, and people are like, I don't want to spend a grand on a cradle when I can just draw it on my Infinite token and just call it a cradle, and we both understand and nobody cares. And it turns out like collectors are going to collect. I'm a person who wants to have a fancy card. I'm going to pay money for a fancy card. But if you just want to play and you just draw a cradle on a forest and call it good, nobody, I mean, for the most part, I think we've discovered people are more chill about this sort of thing as long as you're not trying to sell it to them or pass it off
yeah,
as a counterfeit, which is different.
yeah.
But like,
I
yeah,
noticed this a lot going to Vegas this year where like Las Vegas, which would be like 2 or 3 years ago because of the pandemic, the last one I went to, I didn't really see anyone playing proxies. I'm sure there were a few here and there,
yeah,
but at this Vegas, it was very normalized and people would I got a proxy in my deck. People were at the point where it wasn't even really a conversation anymore before the game about proxies. They were just kind of like, in general, were accepted by the community. I
Yeah,
think if you showed up with 100 proxy cards and it was super wild, maybe people would want to know. But in general, if you got a Gaia's Cradle in your deck that drew on an Infinity token or
yeah,
whatever, like people were just cool with that. So I think that has been a huge shift in just the last couple of years.
yeah, and especially, like, one of the other things that's weird is, like, there's a lot of cards that have spiked, like, Mox Diamond or Cradle, for instance, and I'm like, it's not that I wanna proxy it as much as I don't feel comfortable walking around with 2 grand in my pocket, right? Like, maybe I don't wanna bring my real Cradle to Las Vegas. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I ended up selling a Mox Diamond actually in Vegas this year because I was like, I don't know what I'll ever do with this card.
yeah,
Like, I don't play it in most of my decks anyway because its power level is just a little higher than what I shoot for. And
mhm,
then if I was gonna put it in like a cEDH deck or something, I would be pretty easy just to proxy one. So I was like, I might
right,
as well trade this and get like a bunch of cheaper cards that I actually can build a deck out of or whatever. Like, why am I
yeah.
holding on to this? So
Exactly, like, it was funny, I bought my Mox Diamond when it was 30 bucks, and it was
oh,
just like that day was the day that the first real spike started back in 2015, 2016, or whatever. Because I remember the store owner, there were 2 diamonds there at his store. I bought one, and he grabbed the other and immediately scratched out 30 and wrote 60 on it, and I was like, "Oh, crap,
you've
things are gonna
doubled the
happen."
price.
Yeah, like, by the end of the week, it was like $200, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" Um,
Yeah.
and the deck I bought it for, I didn't even play with it. It was just like, it doesn't fit in my Titania deck, who cares? Um, but, like, I just left it because it's cool to look at in my binder.
Yeah. It's amazing how big of an impact Commanders had on all this. You're mentioning
Yeah,
2015. I was thinking, wow, this it all really lines up with like the growth of Commander going from like a
100%.
fringe format into this huge format, and so many cards like the Mox Diamond and so many other cards, demonic. You can
Right.
name 100 cards that are like this.
I mean,
Their
think about
prices
all
are
the
really
cards that
driven
were
by
just
that.
there were so many cards that were just bulk garbage that
Yeah.
immediately are now just, like, hugely expensive I mean, remember Ristic Studies used to be a quarter, or,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah,
freaking
it was a common.
yeah, Time Twister. Time Twister is now more expensive than, like, Ancestral Recall, and I just like, "How is this even possible?" It's the worst nut power 9. Everybody I don't know. I
Ooh,
mean, it's weird. Commander is like, I had Rosewater on the show, and we were talking about how Commander has changed Magic. Like, the fact that they can't just make designs that are like, you know, um like Cobblade, right? The Seahawk that gets other friends to come with it. You can't do a thing that requires 4 of anymore because that's not the way people play Magic, right? Like,
yeah,
people either play limited or they play EDH, and it's, um, changing entirely. I mean, so actually, that's a really good question. You spend a lot of your time playing 60 card Magic on, like, Magic Online
mhm,
or Arena or whatever, and what do you think how has it been lately? Like, what do you think about the way that it's been looking? Because it feels like since Eldraine forward, that standard has not been their focus, that modern hasn't been their focus, except for, like, Modern Horizons or whatever. It
yep.
feels like Magic is we're making sets for limited, and then we're making a bunch of cards for Commander, and if you happen to play another format with this, good luck.
Yeah, it's really like a reversal because 10 years ago or 15 years ago, cards were made for standard and then
Mhm.
maybe a lesser extent to like legacy or whatever. And
Yeah.
Commander, like no one designed cards for
No,
Commander.
there
That
was, like,
wasn't a
1
thing. Like
card, right?
whatever was printed for standard of these other formats. And now it's kind of shifted where it does feel like some cards I think are still printed for 60 card formats. There's definitely examples here and there, but I
Yeah.
think there's been a big shift where overall, I think Wizards' focus is on printing commander cards. I think that it's I think it's had a slight negative impact on 60 card formats. You hear some people get really hyperbolic and it's destroying 60 card formats or commanders ruining everything. That's silly. I don't think that's true. But I do think one way you see this is like there's so many legends now. And in
Yeah.
commander, legends are a positive because they can be your commander and it's a singleton format, so it doesn't matter in the 99. In 1v1 formats, a random uncommon being a legend is actually a pretty big deal because then can you play 4 copies in your deck? You can a legend roll yourself. So little things like that have kind of changed how 60 card formats work. But I think overall they can they can coexist. I think maybe maybe we need to get back in the middle a little bit. I think Wizards, one thing that happens from my perspective with Wizards is they tend to go in these big swings and they go really far one direction. And then they're like, maybe we went a little too far. Let's swing back towards the middle a little bit. And they find that happy medium. I think right now, maybe they're like a little too heavy on the commander side of things
Yeah.
and should focus a little bit more on the 60 card formats. I think they were definitely focusing too little on Commander 10 years ago or whatever. Like they definitely swung in the right direction, but maybe they could bring it back in just a little bit towards the middle. And but I don't envy them because how do you do that? How do you design one set that's for Commander and for limited and for modern and for standard? Like I don't know if it's possible. Like I do not envy the job that they have to try to do designing these sets.
It feels like an impossibility because of the fact that, like, the things that a 40 card format where the other 3 players have 120 collective life that you're trying to do, how do you design White Weenie for that, right? Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? How do you make aggro when you've got, like, your games don't start until turn 3, turn 4, or whatever? And it's it's incredibly difficult, and they don't wanna stop making, like, these cool cards for like, I was talking to Melissa DeTora, and she was telling me, like, "Look, man, like, everybody complains about how bad white is in Commander for various
Mhm.
sundry reasons, but if we make good white cards, they're gonna blow out all the, like, standard." White has been incredibly powerful
Yeah.
in standard for a long time, and I'm like, "That's true." You've got things like, the wedding invitation or, like, all these white weenie decks that have been, like, just
Yep.
floating around for a long time. They're really, really strong. They just don't do things that Commander cares about. So if we make something that's strong for Commander, then it's either going to be dead card in limited and like standard,
Mm.
or it's going to break. Like, it's going to do something like one of those initiative cards did and just bust a 60 card format in half. Right?
I
Like,
I
I don't
think
know how you fix that.
we kind of already saw that happen, I think, a little bit with green a few years ago, where
Mm,
green, like, wasn't good. Green obviously could ramp, but it didn't have card draw, didn't have removal. There were issues with mono green in Commander.
yeah.
And Wizards solved most of those issues. Now green has great card draw. It has some interesting removal spells,
It is
maybe
the number one
too
color
good
in
even.
Commander.
But we saw Green get really good in standard for a while when they were going through this process because it was getting access to cards that they just traditionally didn't have access to in 60 card formats. Like Green, you got your big dumb creatures, but you don't have removal spells or you don't have the card draw. So there's a
Mm,
downside. So I think that that is something that we've already seen happen a little bit. And I think that could happen if they just like try to fix white cards in for commander. It could end up being a big negative for other formats. So also, I
y-
think White's kind of fixed a little bit.
yeah, I
White
think
seems to
white is
be
doing
doing
fine.
pretty good to me in Commander now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more or less fixed. So
Honestly, I think the summit on Twitter the other day said like the it's not white and red that need fixing anymore. White and red are fine. Now, actually, give us something to do with black, right? Like black
yeah,
is a color that feels like all the good things have been taken out of black, but
yep,
the things that have been added to black are miserable, like Shieldred or Tiny Bones or whatever. These cards that are just like life draining. I mean, and not in the magic way, but just like my personal life being drained away. It's like
yeah.
I don't know. It's like I feel like Magic is slowly rebalancing itself to make for really cool commander cards, but it's coming at the cost of like 60 card. And like I'm not even talking about modern. I mean like modern and like those things are just they live in modern horizons land. That's where we are for those
Yeah.
sets. And modern horizons, I loved them for limited. That's about it.
I Yeah, Modern Horizons, for me, I still like Modern Horizons overall. I think there's certainly been negative consequences because of those cards for
But they're
Modern in
cool.
specific. But they're cool cards, and there are, like, beneath the 10 or 20 broken cards that everyone complains about, it does do a good job of, like, "Oh, I powered up Merfolk that hasn't been a deck in forever. Oh, it powered up some, random deck that just hasn't really had support." So, there are positives that come out of it too.
Yeah, I remember the all the cool ninjas that came out, like the
Oh,
what's the
yeah.
blue black ninja that lets you like steal cards from it. That card is awesome. Um,
So cool.
yeah. So, man, Magic is in such a weird place right now because it's like limited has never been better, with the exception of New Capenna, which let's be honest that's like
Yeah.
a weird misfire. New Capenna felt like it was slightly off from the level that everything else was at. But limited has never been better. Commander is like thriving and like, but you go and play standard or you like these days on arena. I basically play explorer because explorer is like the least. broken format, and it's just
Yeah.
like, and it's broken in a way you can understand. Like I play Cat Oven, so it's not a
Yep.
fair deck, but it's a fun deck. But like, yeah, it just feels like I want to play standard, and standard's not really great. But you do a lot of that. What's your take on standard? Been like you've been playing like a lot of weirdo decks. I mean, that's your whole
Yeah.
modus operandi.
Yeah.
How does it feel these days?
Standard's weird for me. Like currently, right now, today, I haven't been playing it too much lately. I get really hyped when a new
Mm,
set comes out. So, like a month ago, when Brothers War came out, I was super excited to like explore all this stuff. But then a month later, it's kind of like, oh, I'm seeing the same like the shield rids and these same cards. That right now, the black decks are still like very, very good in
yeah.
standard. So on arena in specific, you play against them all the time.
That
So
Invoke
eventually, that
Despair
gets
card, man, I hate
oh
that
my
card so
goodness.
much.
Oh, yeah, that it lives up to its name. Let's say
Yeah,
let's say
it
that.
sure does.
It really does, yeah. But
Mm,
I still enjoy standard. I don't think it's as good as it has been in the past. I wonder if there's a solution to it. I almost wonder, what do you think about this, Shivam? Like, we get so many products today. Do you think there's any merit to, like, having standard sets again? They've shifted towards this, like, premier set model where the sets that are used to be standard sets are now kind of designed for everyone, which is a lot of commander cards, honestly.
yeah.
Do you think there's any is there any merit to that, or is that just foolish on Wizards' end because then you're cutting out a huge portion of your player base if you're just designing these sets for standard players and not with an eye towards commander players?
I think I think there are people inside Wizards who would love to do that, like, who are just tired of making every other card a legendary. Like, I was looking at Dominaria United, and Dominaria is different because it's supposed to be like a billion legends in there, but there's a lot of those cards which would have just fine as like a creature and not as a like a legendary something something like
Yeah.
Zero Jonin or whatever, the one that taps to give you +1 for domain. Nobody's gonna
Yeah.
run a deck built on that card, but it's
Ugh,
super just sweet as a generic 4 of or something. I I would love to see them. I mean, there's so much infrastructure stuff that would have to change. Like, I think part of the problem is because Commander is so popular, and because every card can be played in Commander, they can't ignore that. That's like where their money's
yeah.
coming from.
Yeah.
But like because it's dumb. It's really frustrating because they're making very powerful cards that work as singles. And let me think about this for a second. So I mean, because that's a really interesting question. Like, we have a lot of sets that come out that are like specific for Commander. You got your Baldur's Gate,
Mhm.
you've got your Modern Horizons, whatever. Um, and then we've got sets that are like limited or for everybody to access, which are your premier sets. How do you make a set that only cares about 60 card or cranks more towards that as opposed to,
Yeah.
because think about it, if you made like Brothers War and focus it on like 60 card decks, all the Commander players would be like, how come I can't play this thing in my, or what? And it's
Yeah,
true.
that is true.
I
Although,
think
like,
yeah,
I think even if you did design something like Brothers War for 60 card formats, I think you'd still do alright for Commander, like Urza and Mishra and Titania, like, those would probably
such
be
good
exactly
cards.
the same, like, those are still some of the most popular legends from the set. The ones that get me, if you go to, like, Dominaria United, there's
Mm,
this, like, cycle of, domain uncommon legends,
yes.
and those ones are the ones where I'm like, does this really need to be legendary?" Because they're two-color legends, but they care about domain, they're, like, really awkward to play as your commander because you
Yeah.
really want all the basic land types. So they're really not designed for commander, but then because they're randomly legends, they don't really have a chance to do much in standard or 60 card formats. So some of that stuff, I'm like, maybe you could shift a little bit more towards 60 card formats with designs like that. Like keep
I
printing the
100%
really
agree.
popular, like one of the things Mark Rosewater mentioned recently was like, uh, we're getting more archetypes in the format. Someone asked him about the number of commanders, and he said he thinks that printing cards for commander has given a lot of new archetypes, and that's great. I don't want to see like worm Beru or whatever, the new
That card is
worm
awesome.
commander, like stuff like that. Those are what I want to see. But like a random uncommon that no one's gonna play in commander anyway, like you
Yeah,
probably don't have to make that one legend. Like
right.
no commander player is gonna care, and maybe it helps 60 card formats a little bit if that's not legendary.
I think exactly what I was saying. Like, there's the card Nail Avizoa
Oh,
Aeronaut or whatever, the green blue one,
that's like
which
the
is like,
worst one.
huh?
That's,
I'm
like,
sorry.
one of the ones that frustrates me the
Yeah.
most as far as being legendary, yeah.
Exactly, like, it's hella fun and limited, right? Like, you do combat damage to a player, look at the top X where it's the number of domain like, land you have, and then things happen or whatever, it's cool, but it's blue-green. I'm not running a two-color domain deck. That's not
Yeah,
happening, and
no.
I think there's a couple of things that happen here. One is you're creating these designs which are literally never gonna be seen in Commander except in, like, a Joda deck or something random, and then 2, you're also just wasting all this creative equity. Like, you're creating, like, these names for characters nobody's heard of, nobody cares about, and you can't even pronounce, and it's just like, this coulda just been, like, Elvish Scout, and it would've been
Yeah,
fine, and it would've been fun. Um, I don't know, just
I
they're
I
pushing
I
too far.
I think
They
there's a
need to
cost to Oh, sorry, I didn't mean
no,
to
no,
interrupt you, Shiva.
basically,
It
all I was saying is that it feels like they're just farming, like over farming this land, right? Like we're
yeah.
getting to the point that you can't really like. I don't know. I don't have any affinity to these characters, so the being legendary doesn't matter. And they're so narrow in focus that their being legendary hurts them because I'm not going to run them in commander.
I think too, speaking of the legendary thing, I'm not the biggest Vorthos, but I'm friends with some people that are big Vorthoses, and I know one of the criticisms of Vorthos community has had is like traditionally legends are like story characters. They have
Yeah,
like lore and background and they matter. And if you go back to the early years of Magic when they were printing like 8 legends a year or something,
right.
they were all like these super iconic characters that had like a ton of lore to them. Now we get these legends that like they have no lore. It's like a sentence printed on whatever, like somewhere is the amount of their lore. You look up their Wikipedia page and there's like nothing. So that's been, I think there's a flavor cost here too, to printing all these legends that don't really hit the traditional metrics of legends, of like mattering to the story. Yeah, it
So
made me think of that when you mentioned the name character thing that no one actually cares about that could be non legendary.
that's I mean, look, that's exactly the problem. Is like right now, because somebody was complaining to me the other day, is like, oh, Transformers cards don't feel like magic, or like, Walking Dead cards don't feel like magic, or I don't want Harry Potter casting spells at Lord of the Rings here. Okay, fine, but do you know what Rezug the Bone Cobbler does?
Yeah.
I guarantee you don't. Like, unless you've been looking at Alchemy Dominaria for the random, like, legendary, like, spirit thing, and just like, there's a million of these legends that exist now, and I'm like, every day I post a Scryfall random, and every day someone's like, "Oh, that'll be great in my Griffnab deck," and I'm like, "What the hell's a Griffnab?"
What?
And then you're like, "Oh, it was one of the 38 commanders that was put out in like Dominaria Commander or Baldur's Gate or whatever it is." And I'm like, "It's my job to know these, and I have no idea." I'm like,
Yeah.
look, I
I've
appreciate having options. Options are great, and I love seeing all these cool niche cards that take your deck in weird directions. They don't all need to be legends.
yeah. Yeah,
I don't know.
I totally agree with that. I was thinking about it the other day. As far as digital commander, I play in kind of a unique way because we do commander clash.
Yeah,
So we have 4 people that every week are building a new deck. In paper, I have like 4 decks that I tune and upgrade and build a new one once in a while. But if we playing commander clash, we probably play 200 different commanders a
yeah.
year. We don't get through half of the new commanders that were printed this year. And we're playing in like the most aggressive way, getting through as many new decks as humanly possible. And we're not even like scratching the surface of all the legends that were printed this year.
It's wild to me because I was going through and I was doing a review of like legendary cards to just see like if I could do a end year end commander review, right? And I'm looking at that. And this episode is going to air in like February, but we're recording it in December, just so you guys know at home. Um, but basically, I was sitting there doing a 2022 review, and I'm like, I've bought cards from every set. I've got like all these cards. There are still legends that I'm turning up in these sets
Yeah.
that I've never seen before. And I'm like, what the hell does this do? And it's like I was thinking about like my favorite card from this year that came out was Mazzy, which is a Naya enchantress. You can cast auras on other people's spells and other people's creatures, and it does cool things. And I'm like, dude, this came out in like June and there are people now who are like, yo, I don't remember that card at all. And I played Baldur's Gate and drafted it forever. I'm like, I don't even understand. I mean, like,
Yeah.
there's so many legends. I mean, look, it's awesome because that means that we finally got back to Richard Garfield's magic, where it's like you sit down at a table and you have no idea what's coming up,
Yeah.
like zero idea. But it's also, like, overwhelming and hard to support. I mean, I think the cool thing they did, and I don't mean to be, like, totally downer on this, like, the Lost Legends promotion they did for Dominaria where they had the box toppers, which were Legends
Oh,
cards
yeah.
that they rebuilt, like they did
Yep.
Jedit Ojana and they did some of them. Those were awesome because those were, like, really iconic characters or characters that had cool cards that were just vanilla from Legends or whatever, but they remade them into a way that actually does cool things or leads you in cool direct like, one of them's Archer Tribal, one of them is Red
Y
Green Dwarves. There are no green dwarves, but maybe
Yeah.
someday there will be. I
Yep.
I don't know. I thought it was
Deserts, there
really
was the
neat.
desert one, which was
Yeah,
something that,
exactly.
yeah, his is on or whatever, like,
Yeah,
that
the
we haven't had a deck that cared about legends. Those are some of the commanders that I like. I feel like, and I don't wanna be a downer on this either, because I feel like Wizards has printed a ton of amazing commanders this year. There's, like, a list of so many just awesome designs, like Mazzy, that are doing unique things, that are supporting, tribes or play styles that haven't actually had enough support, that are now playable, that call back to old characters. So they've done so much right. There's just so many. I'm in the same position as you, where this is my job, and this hasn't happened before until like the last year or two, where someone will show up in my stream and be like, "Hey, what do you think about this card?" I'll be like, "Huh? Like
I have
what?
no idea.
What? Like I didn't know that was a card. Let me Google it. Let me Skyfall it real quick." Like,
And
and
you're
that
like,
didn't used to happen. Yeah,
right. No, I mean, it's like sitting there like it used to be if I like drop a random common from Nemesis, okay, fine. Maybe you're not going to remember a draft format from 25 years ago. But this
yeah,
is like, hey, look, here's an uncommon or rare from a set that came out 3 months ago and that you drafted for a
yeah,
full month that you literally have
yeah,
no idea exists. And that's where it's like,
yeah.
what is happening? It's not even that we're old. It's that literally these things are just not staying in our heads anymore because there's just so damn many of them.
There- yeah, you're
Uh,
you're on to the next one and on to the next one and on to the next one. It just, yeah, one after another.
okay, but like let's shift tracks here for a second though, because I do want to talk about limited because I know you do play like a lot of limited too, right?
Mhm.
Or do you?
I do, yeah, I
Some?
play more constructed than limited, but I play some. I enjoy limited. I think I run into my content is mostly constructed, and that's what people, like, wanna watch. So I don't get to draft as much as I would like to, but I do love drafting, yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's my take is skewed because the one time we got to play together was playing in the cube draft in Vegas, right?
Oh, you wrecked us. You
That
wrecked
was
us.
so
Oh,
good.
man.
Oh, I
That was such, yeah, that was a fun
uh,
draft.
maybe my favorite cube draft of all time. So, do you play any cube?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely, more online at this point. Every once in a while, in an event, someone will have a cube. I
Yeah.
don't have a paper cube, but yeah, so I play,
No,
like,
but I mean
vintage
like do you play
cube
like
or
the
arena
vintage cube
cube
or
or
anything like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then I will shift off that because, like, I've just been thinking about limited because I was literally drafting before we started. Uh, um,
What were you drafting, Shivam?
I was
Cube?
drafting in Arena Cube, and my deck went 0-3 drops, so we're not gonna
Ooh.
talk about that.
Do you do you do the Magic Online cubes at all or no? Just
You
mostly
know, I
arena?
did, but I've stopped playing on Magic Online, and I just stuck to Arena. Once Arena came out, I kind of was like,
Yeah.
because one of the problems I've noticed, and maybe you've seen this too, is that on on Magic Online, once Arena started, the difficulty level on online got way higher.
Oh,
Like Moto's
yeah,
like player base has like filtered
yeah,
itself down to like people who really, really want to play like vintage or legacy or pauper who are really, really good at doing like hyper competitive stuff. So if you just
yep.
jumped on there to draft or like do whatever, you're just getting shellacked by these people who are just incredibly skilled because they want to crack cards for the actual standard formats that they care about. And so I was
Yeah,
like,
it's all the old timers and pros that are still on Moto at this point. So yeah, it is super
yeah,
competitive for sure.
like, I tried playing a vintage cube once, and it's like, okay, well, when you're, paired up against LSV, what are you gonna do but
Yeah,
lose? Okay, well,
yeah.
GG's. But I love watching vintage cube. It's like my favorite format to watch, just because you get to see people do things like Time Twister into Shieldred.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
I really want them to add that to Arena. That's the thing where I was heading with this. Like they just added the Power 9 with a alchemy
Oh
card
god, I
that like
hate
puts
that
it into your deck
stupid
or whatever, shuffles it into your
Oracle
deck,
of
Oracle of
Ages.
Alpha, yeah, or whatever it is. Like the Power Nines there, we're getting close, where maybe in another year or two they can actually have something that feels kind of like vintage cube, but you can play on Arena, which I think
I
would be
think
really fun.
I think it would be sweet because all they have to do is program like 500 cards or whatever individual. You don't need to program every set ever. Just program the cards you need for Vintage Cube. Like, let me
Yeah.
play Oracle of the,
Oh,
Moldiah or whatever it is.
they
Um,
oh,
that stupid
they make
Oracle
so
of
much
Ages
money
card.
too.
Yes,
So
dude,
so many people would play it. Yeah,
I
like,
would
I would spend so much gold or
all
gems on
the
that.
gems would be gone in a
Yeah.
heartbeat. But God, I hate that Oracle of Ages card, dude, because I got caught in a blink loop that someone did, and they had at one point 7 time walks stacked, and I'm like, "Fine, go ahead. What
Yeah.
do you want from me?"
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, have fun with your 7 turns.
Like, "Dude, just hit me. Just friggin' hit me,
Yeah,
please."
please kill me. And sometimes it gets like that in games of Commander too, where you're just like, "Oh, come on, just please just take me out." And everyone's like,
"You
"No,
have the
that's
win.
alright.
Please
We
just
might
do it."
need you." Yeah, just just do
Yeah.
it. Just do it.
What do you think about Commander these days? Like, just in general, where do you think we are after, like, this year?
Ooh, wow, that's a really good question. I mean, Commander, I have a ton of fun playing Commander. Like, I'm still very much enjoying Commander. I will say, I feel like, and I wonder if you've experienced this, I feel like games have gotten a lot more snowbally than they were a few years ago, where because
Hmm.
there's these powerful cards that can kind of just snowball the advantage and take over the game really quickly, that I feel like it's much more punishing to like miss a land drop or fall a little bit behind early because someone can just really, because the cards are so powerful, pull very far ahead very quickly. So that's one thing that I've noticed that I'm not a huge fan of. But I mean, that's a little nitpick. Overall, like Commander is still just an absolute
I think
blast. It's
Yeah, I think that's a very fair statement to say, actually, now that I think about it. Like, you're right, because I mean, it used to be like, obviously, Smothering Tithe would let you just careen way ahead, Dockside will
yeah.
let you careen way ahead, but now it feels like every color's got something that'll let them just cascade in. Like, there was a card that came out this year in New Capenna Commander called Master of Ceremonies or Party Starter or something, whatever. What it is every upkeep, you talk to each player and you ask them to choose between like draw a card or get a treasure or
Oh yeah.
put a counter on a creature or something, and then you get to do the same. And it ends up just like super snowballing into this huge kind of like I'm gonna look this card up now because it's a really good card actually. New
I think
Cabana
it is
Commander.
Master of Ceremonies. I'm
Yes.
pretty sure.
It's I got the elephant on it. Yeah, no, the rhino. Yeah, master of ceremony. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player chooses money, friends, or secrets. For each player that chose money, you and that player get a treasure. For each one that chooses friends, you and that player get a 1/1 citizen token. And for each one that chooses secrets, you each draw a card. And so for that white player who's got this card, suddenly they're just getting 3 treasures or 3 cards or three. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a really cool
Yeah.
card, but it also means that that player is going to just like start exploding real quickly. um, I don't know, I think that's ups and downs, right? Like, that's bad because it does kinda suck to watch them snowball, and it like, half the fun of Commander is being able to come back way, way at the end, and I
But
think
if you're
part of
snowballing,
yeah, but
it
it's
feels
also
pretty
super
it's
fun!
pretty
It's
fun. Yeah,
super
if you're
fun!
the one that's doing it.
I think, though, that there's a lot of, the politics does keep that in play. Like, that means a lot of people do look at this person, they're like, "That person's obviously winning," and it's much more easy to tell now than it used to be that they're way ahead, and so you guys can focus, kill that thing, or handle them, and then come back,
Yep.
and so I've seen snowballs, but they haven't taken over as much as they've created targets, if that makes
That
sense, right? Like, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a lot easier to get out of hand now, but not in a way that's like untouchable. I think. I don't know.
that's
Maybe that's just more of the tiers I play at are much more relaxed about that sort of thing.
that's a really good point though. It reminds me of like how they have the signpost uncommons for limited in sets that you're supposed to open and be like, okay, I'm gonna go this direction based on what this uncommon does. Maybe some of these really powerful, the smothering ties or whatever, are kind of like signpost cards in Commander where it's like, once you see this hit the table, we need to deal with that player. So maybe there's
Exactly.
some like upside to this as well. I think like Ristic Studies kind of like that as well.
Yeah.
Like it hits the table, you're like, if we don't deal with this player or this permanent, they're gonna take over this game. So maybe there's some upside there that the cards are so powerful, when they come down, you have to deal with that player.
I I think that's like a side effect. I think they're trying to make powerful cards, but I think the fact that we've got this kind of self-correcting nature of like I mean, I hate the term threat assessment, and commander players are notoriously emotional driven players. So we don't like pick on the strongest player at the table. We'll pick on whoever's bugging us. But sometimes your attention just gets grabbed and dragged, and you're like, oh no, that card is a problem, and we need to deal with that card, or we're all going to die, right? Like, sometimes it's like when I'm playing against Brian Kibler and you see his Mowu deck, and it's just like, oh, he's got cards that any card that has a +1/+1 counter on it gets indestructible, and all of his cards have +1/+1 counters. Oh crap, we're going to die. Let's handle that, right? Um, I don't know. I think
I
it's
I
honestly, you know what I
think
wish? Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, go ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, what I wish is that we had more weirdo commanders that were like the ones in Jumpstart, honestly. Like
Yeah,
the jumpstart commanders, like the Kibo, the monkey, or whatever. That's the sort of magic I want to see. Like super just bananas, like weird
literally.
bananas, literal bananas, but just like weirdo cards that do like niche things that don't bother anybody and aren't going to be messing with standard and are just here to be fun and silly. And like, I don't know. Sometimes I just worry that like the focus on commander that Watsy is doing is making it so that people who like me are building up random niche decks or whatever just can't compete with like my zombie deck that I built for 10 years or whatever can't compete with the Wilhelm deck that they just designed cards straight for. But at the same
Yeah.
time, somebody who hasn't been playing for 10 years gets to have a zombie deck that's cool and fun and don't won't just die to like anybody at the LGS. I'm like, okay, well there's trade-offs. My personal enjoyment or the game's personal enjoyment. I don't know.
Yeah. I think overall they did pretty well with power level this year, I would
Yeah.
say, compared to, like, the original Commander Legends year where we had, like, Hull Breacher and Jewel Lotus is another card that was very controversial, like,
Huh.
I feel like there was nothing like that I can think of this year. You can argue, like, "Oh, Shieldred isn't super fun," or whatever, but I can't think of with all the cards they printed for Commander this year, which is a huge number, I think they did a pretty good job of making most of them, like, fun and powerful, but not really, like, breaking the game
Yeah.
level of powerful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Because Um, there's a lot of really good, really niche commanders, and obviously the backgrounds and stuff were really cool. But there was no commander card that I looked at this year that I was like, "Oh crap, we need to look at that and like blow that up, or this is going to be a problem for Magic forever." Like,
Yeah.
it feels like all of them were balanced and either dealt with very specific niches, or were just doing a generically good thing, but without being like Chulain level of good, right? Like, there's no
Yeah.
Corvalds this year. There's no one commander that dragged the whole table with it. It was just like a whole bunch of new I mean, like, did you see the, Warhammer decks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, I have one of them that I, have been playing a bit. Yeah, they're super
They are
awesome.
fantastic.
Oh,
They're strong,
they
but they're also, like, balanced and not broken.
they might be the best precons Wizards has ever made, honestly, in my opinion. Like, they're so
Easy,
good.
easy.
They're just like the designs are good, they feel unique, they're powerful, but not overpowered. More precons like that will make me super happy. Like, they really nailed it with those.
I think those decks are some of the best designed products WotC has ever made, and I think you're exactly right that they're definitely the best precons we've ever gotten because they feel cohesive out of the box, but they also don't feel like you're automatically gonna lose when you drop it. It's not like the Prosper precon that came out, right? Like, which is just
Yeah.
so broken out of the box. It's like, "Oh, this is"
Yeah.
wait, did Prosper come out this year?
I think it was last year technically. I don't
Jesus.
I can't keep track of it. I can't keep track anymore.
Yeah, nobody has any idea anymore. Um, yeah, man, I don't know. Like, what have you found enjoyable? Like, what has been your favorite thing to play this year?
Ooh, so, ah,
Or
I mean,
what would you want to do in paper if you had the chance?
ooh, what would I wanna do in well, I'm really hyped to build Preston, the Vanisher, which is one of my favorite commanders of the year, the
The
another jump
rabbit?
commander that I don't have it yet. Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Panharmonicon. Anything that looks like a Panharmonicon, I love, and you can argue that, like, making token copies of things with ETB triggers is kinda like a Panharmonicon, but no, I had a Brago deck, and it was I think the first ever commander deck that I had in paper was Brago, and I realized over the years that Brago can be a little unfun to play
Yeah.
against because it's very, like, loopy and just, like, the value is pretty intense, and sometimes you have really long blink turns where you just kinda, like, have all these triggers. So I decided to power it down, and I split it in 2 basically, and I made a
Mm.
mono white deck and a mono blue deck. The mono
Oh,
blue deck's a Flibblethip Panharmonicon deck, so it's like
what?
Muldrifters, Flibblethip is my commander to play your Panharmonicon and draw more cards, and it actually works better than you think.
That
The
sounds
mono white
awesome.
Yeah, so I love playing that deck, and then the mono white deck was Adrian Abdul, one of the background commanders, or Abdul Adrian, which is like a low powered, can kind of blink your board and make soldier token commander. But
Yes.
that one I'm going to turn into the Preston deck. So yeah, those are the decks I've been having the most fun with in paper this year.
Yeah,
Those two.
Preston looks sweet, man. For those of you who don't know at home who are listening on the radio, Preston is the 3 and a white rabbit wizard from Jumpstart 2, which says when another non-token creature enters the battlefield, if you didn't cast it, create a copy that's a create a token that's a copy of that creature except it's a 0/1 illusion, and then you can pay 1 and a white and sack 5 illusions to exile target non-land permanent. So yeah, exactly. If a bunch of cards come into play blinked, then you get to make a million copies of them, which sounds
Oh,
hilarious and awesome.
oh yeah.
Like, that
So
card
much
seems super fun,
so much
especially with,
fun.
the elephant that was in Baldur's Gate. Um, God damn it. I hate this. There used to be a time when I could just name cards,
every
and
every card, yeah.
and now it's just like, "Oh, yeah, do you remember the random
I
white
I know
elephant?"
your pain. That the elephant from, yeah, a few months ago.
Yeah, um, oh, God. Oh, yeah, Lulu the Holophant, which is at the
Oh
beginning
yeah.
of the 3/2 flyer. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a 1/1 counter on it. Put a 1/1 counter on each tapped creature you control and then untap them. So basically, these two can combo together. You can bounce things and bring them back, and then suddenly, it gets wow, now I wanna build that deck. Now I'm thinking about, like,
Yeah.
oh, if you got things that'll tap down your creatures, and it's wow, wow,
I Yeah, I've been coming around to powering down some of my decks, I think has been my take of this year. And I found that I actually have way more fun once I do that. Like I had way more fun playing Flibblethip and playing the mono white blink deck than I did playing the Brago deck.
Mhm.
So I think that's been my big lesson for the year, is just like, it's easy to just jam all the good cards in the deck, but at
Yes.
some point, we have so many good cards now that your decks just end up being so powerful that you actually end up having a better play experience if you self-regulate your power a little bit, and like intentionally maybe power down your decks a little bit.
I feel like that's the slogan I've been chanting f the whole time, right? Like, look,
Yeah.
we can play mono good stuff in every color now. Every color
Yep.
can make these decks that are just incredibly powerful. Every combination of colors, you could build these insanely good decks, but there's so many cards that have been printed in Magic that do such weird things at niche power levels and stuff. Like, I'm being honest with you guys. Take your tutors out of your decks. Take your
Yep.
tutors out and replace them with some weirdo uncommon from like Oath of the Gatewatcher, some like set that you've totally forgotten about that just does something weird and neat, and like it's fun because that's why I think my favorite way to play, and I've said this many times, is like boxing league. You know, single box commander. You get a box, you build a deck out of whatever's in there. It forces you to use all the random limited chaff that's in the box to build a deck out of, but it's super fun because you don't get all the crazy powerful things. Like I built a Nira deck this year because I'd never built a blue red deck before. And Nira, she's a chaos commander. You play a spell, and uh, instead of playing that spell, you bottom it and then flip over the top to find a non-land permanent, and then you put that into play. And she's like a chaos, basically like permanent chaosy warp type deck. And so it's super fun to play like a Pondor, play a Ponder, and then get like Consecrated Sphinx off the top, or like Mind Over Matter, or all these weirdo cards. And I've just realized if you put hits in that deck that are super powerful, then it's broken and boring. But if you put like
Yeah.
hits that come out that do weirdo things when they come into play, suddenly it's fun times. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
I
think
yeah, I think you're exactly onto something.
what do you think about, so I think one of the challenges with that, in having everyone do that, is we've seen more and more 60 card players moving over towards playing commander
Mhm.
recently. Like there's a pretty long list of pros. Like you mentioned Kibler earlier. I know Brad Nelson is really getting
Yeah.
into commander now. There's such a big mind set shift that has to happen. And
Yeah.
I've experienced this myself because I played 60 card format, not that I'm a pro or whatever, but like
Well, you are a competitive person, though.
yeah, and I like, trying to win with my own way, but I do enjoy winning. But I went through this too, where if you're coming from 60 card formats, Commander is so much different. The way you got to think
Yeah.
about it is so much different. And if you build your Commander decks like you would your 60 card format decks with all the best cards, it ends up being a negative for the format. So, do you think with so many new players coming into Commander from 60 card formats, that's going to be a challenge? Because I think when you first start building Commander decks, you're going to build them like you build a 60 card deck. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you if that's where you're coming from? And then it's going to take you a couple years to be like, well, maybe I should start taking some of these cards out of my deck, even though they're the optimal cards, the right cards,
Mhm,
because that's not
mhm.
what Commander is about. And I think that's one of the challenges of where we're at with Commander right now, with the format just getting so big and bringing in so
Yes.
many different people that just haven't been playing the format before.
You have hit on one of the biggest existential problems with Commander right now, which is that because every other format is effectively dead in paper, like, or just like dying or not really seeing play. Like in paper, the only thing we really see are limited or Commander. And
Hmm.
like that's just real talk, right? Like that's just the way the game is. And it sucks because like a lot of, I mean, aside, a lot of Commander cards used to be cheaper because people would play standard, rotate out, sell them back, and then we could buy them for dirt cheap. Because nobody's playing standard, those rotations aren't happening. Anyways, um, you are exactly right. There's a whole influx of people who are like, we've seen this now for 2 3 years now, where you see like eternal players, people who are like legacy or vintage players who are like, I want to play my cards, but there's no format for me to play it in, so I'm going to just add some cards and turn this into a commander deck. And then lately we've been seeing more modern players and more standard players, people who are
Yep.
like competitive minded but still want to play Magic, and they're like, if everybody's playing Commander, I guess I'll figure out how to play Commander. And they come in and they're like, well, I guess like the canonical example I like to use a lot is Reed Duke and his brother Ian decided they were going to try out Elder Dragon Highlander one day, and they're like, oh, okay, you pick a legend and all your favorite cards in singleton and you do it. And so they picked two like basically blue black commanders, like Una, Queen of the Fae, or whatever other random thing, and they build a deck that's all counter spells and all like control spells and like 1/2/2 to just hit you with. And like, this
Yeah.
isn't very fun. I guess we're not going to do this anymore. I'm like, bro, if you
Yeah.
go in trying to build a torture deck in like a commander setting, I mean, I got to play against Brad Nelson at GP Richmond, not GP,
Hmm.
some Command Fest Richmond. It's gonna take a long time to switch saying GP to MF or whatever. But yeah, and I played in maybe his first or second Commander game, and he was playing a mono blue Urza deck that one of the SCG guys had given him, and it was obviously a cEDH or cEDH tuned towards deck. And Nelson's sitting there playing. He's like, he's countering all the spells. He's playing very logically, very pro tour level, and like doing very efficient things, drawing a million cards. And he's looking at me. He's like, "This isn't very fun." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you're playing like a broken competitive hyper deck." And he's like, and we had a conversation afterwards. And he was like, "Look, I realized after that that the point of Commander is not to try to just maximize and win, but that I want to just enjoy playing Magic with people I want to hang out with. So maybe I'm going to build decks that will let me do that instead of just like going for the most efficient play every time or going for the most like high powered pattern." I mean, at like Vegas in last year's Vegas, and then at a bunch of different events, I've talked to a bunch of pro players who are starting to shift over, and the biggest thing I have to tell them is like, you can't think about this like you're trying to win a pro tour. You cannot build
Yeah.
a deck in Commander. You're not going to have fun, and nobody's ever going to play with you again
Yeah.
if you're building a deck to just kick everyone's ass, right?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
congratulations, you won. Now we're just going to continue playing our game over here while you sit. Like, what do you want me to do? Um, it's a real challenge because there's a lot of times people are like, how come nobody wants to play with me? I've got 30 counter spells in my deck in my Baral, blue mono blue deck, and I want to play traditional vintage control. And I'm like, bro, there's four people at the table. They don't want to sit there for 3 hours while you do a control, like, play with all these
Exactly.
control cards. That's just not how Commander works. And
I want.
once, like, yeah, it's hard. It's really difficult for them to, like, Kibler at least figured out, it's like, okay, well, what if I just make a deck out of cards that I only played in Pro Tours? I'm like, that's a cool theme. It's
That is a
powerful, but
super
it's also
sweet
like
theme. Yeah.
neat. And once you rejigger your mind to being, I'm not here to compete, but I'm here to do interesting and fun things, you still get
Yeah.
high powered stuff, but you don't have to like try with the play the most efficient way possible. Like Kibler said an interesting thing yesterday when I interviewed him for the show, which was that he's like, people say you should play cEDH, and he's like, if I wanted to play competitive Magic, I can just go back to the Pro Tour. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's that's a very good point. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
that
it's a hard thing to just shift away from.
It really, especially if that's what you've been doing for, decades, and that's
Yeah,
just how
right?
you've always played Magic, like, that's a really big shift, and I think I don't know, I always think about it, like, what do you remember from past Commander games? And for me, it's not who won. I can't tell you, "Oh, like, 6 months ago, I was playing this game and this person won." I can tell you about, like, the really epic thing that someone did. Like, I don't know who won the game, but this really crazy cool thing happened. Those are the moments that, like,
Yes.
make me want to play Commander, and I want to create, and I want to see your decks create. Like, that's what makes Commander like such an amazing format. So I think once you get in that mindset, I think it becomes a lot easier. But I think just like as we bring in so many new players, it's going to be an adjustment period, and maybe
Yeah,
cEDH is right for some of them, like because that is also another path to go if you really do want to do the optimization and tuning thing. Like maybe that is the direction to go. I don't think that's going to be for everyone, but for some people, I think that's the
I think
direction maybe.
I think it's very important that cEDH exists. I think cEDH existing gives these people a place where they can go and have their competition, have their tight plays and their very high efficient decks without coming to a store, sitting down with this hyper efficient deck and then just blowing everybody out of the water. They don't have fun, you don't have fun, and you never come back. Instead, it's like here's a table where people are playing hyper competitive and they want to play with you. You guys can all enjoy this together. It's great. Like Matt Sperling is also one of those new pros who's just started delving into Commander, and he was one of the people who like used to hate Commander, and then he discovered CDH and it's like, oh, I can just play the best possible card, and it's awesome. And I'm like, yes, you can. Like, I had an interaction with him the other day about like Lotus Petal, and like somebody was like, "Would you play Lotus Petal in your deck?" And I'm like, "Never. I'm never going to just put a random zero drop that does
No.
nothing. Like, who cares? One mana." And he's like, "Well, it's the best possible mana acceleration. It's a free treasure. This and that." I'm like, "It is. Yes, I don't want my game to start before turn 7." So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Lotus Petal's well and good, but if I'm using all these cards to power out a Juggernaut, does that really matter?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Exactly. Oh,
I mean, we're gonna have a I think next year we're gonna see a lot of culture clash because we've seen it
yeah.
already this year, but we're gonna see a lot of people who are like, "My commander is being taken by all these pros who are coming to ruin everything." I'm like, "No, they just wanna play Magic. We just need to encourage them to learn a different way to play. That's all." It's like
And it'll happen.
yeah,
I think it will happen. Like Commander has a way if you keep playing it. It's gonna get you in that Commander mindset eventually. I think because
yeah,
I know that happened for me. Like just building decks and playing, and you're like, oh, all of a sudden maybe I shouldn't be running 7 tutors every deck. Maybe it's more fun if I run 0 tutors. Like maybe that
mhm,
leads to a more enjoyable experience. And like that's just some of the stuff you learn as you play Commander. I
yeah.
think.
I think one of the things that people forget is like in 60 card, you're taught that variance is bad. You want to have
Yeah.
the most chances to get the thing that wins your game to come up to the table right now. So it's your tutors or like four ofs or whatever. And so when you're building a commander deck and you're like, I've got one combo that wins and then 98 ways to get that one combo. And I'm like, yes. Or you can embrace the fact that you're playing a 100 card singleton deck and just flip over the top and see what
Yeah.
happens. You
Yeah.
know,
Hope
It's
for
like,
the best. That's what makes it fun for
yeah,
sure.
I don't know. I love it.
Well,
I don't know, man. I think Magic's in an interesting place. The designs are really good. I think they've started to learn not to build Prospers and to give us more
yes.
Barus. And
Yep.
I hope, and I think we're going to see more interesting things. I mean, it'll be weird to see what the Lord of the Rings set does. Like, that's going to be wild. Like,
That's
it's,
gonna yeah, that one makes me a little nervous because it's modern legal, so we'll see
yeah,
what the power level is like. Like,
yeah.
not because it's Lord of the Rings, I feel like we're kind of past like the whole other IPs and Magic thing, but I do worry whenever I hear like, "Oh, this is gonna be for modern," and then I'm like, "Oh my
Like,
god,
I hope you tested it,
Ragavans and
buddy.
Urza Sagas." Like,
Yeah,
hopefully
right.
this isn't too overpowered, but
Well, yeah, like
we'll
I'm
see.
looking forward to like you play your Ragavan and I use my Bilbo to steal it from you or something like
Yeah.
what? Like, or I mean, but
Yes.
how flavorful would it be if Bilbo stole your soul ring, right? Like that would be amazing.
Oh, that would be oh, that'd be so and I think Lord of the Rings, like, the flavor is perfect for Magic too, like, it
I mean,
really
yeah,
traditional fantasy, like, IP, so,
yeah. I mean, it's going to be a better fit than some of the choices that they've made, but like the
yeah,
Transformers cards are really cool. Like the
they
designs of
are,
the cards are really cool, and
and we've been playing with them, we did Commander Clash with them, and I will say they're actually really fun. I still would have rather seen them be like a secret lair drop
I
than be
agree.
in Brothers War, the flavor aspect of that was weird to me,
I
but the
100% agree.
actual designs are really fun. Like, we did
Yeah,
all Transformers battle where everyone had a different one, and it was a really fun, interesting game of Commander, and the commanders themselves are really interesting.
exactly. I think that the designs that they're doing for these weirdo cards are really cool. And yes, the IP is leading them down paths they wouldn't do. I agree that they should be secret layers. I think secret layer is a perfect place to put these sort of things. Like if they had said like, and now we're doing Brothers War, and here's a related secret layer that's Transformers, everybody would have been like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
putting them into the packs was like,
Mm,
"Mm, I wish that was a
nah.
Titania instead, But I don't know. I think and like I don't know, Brothers War is a sweet set. So like I like all
Oh,
the retro artifacts. I think it's been super fun.
this was a really good year of Magic sets.
Yeah.
Streets of New Capenna was the only one that I think for me didn't live up to what I wanted it to be. It's not a bad
Yeah.
set by any means, but it just didn't end up being exactly what I was hoping for out of that
It-
set. But every
yeah.
other set, I feel like the premier sets were so. Kamigawa is one of the best sets they ever did. Brothers War was
Exactly.
great. Dominator United was really sweet. So it was a really strong year overall, I think.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with you 100%. I think honestly the only thing that made me sad this year was one putting Double Masters and Baldur's Gate like a month apart. That
Yeah.
sucked because Baldur's Gate's a better set than people give it credit for. And two, putting out Unfinity and Warhammer on the same day. Ugh. And also
I'll
Unfinity was just not great.
I'll cut them a little slack with that because I think that did like that
Yeah,
wasn't their
that wasn't
plan.
their fault. I don't blame
It's
them for it.
unfortunate that it worked out that way, but yeah, that was awkward. We had that big product crunch. Oh, Shivam, I gotta ask you something because I know you love limited, and I know
Mm.
you love Commander. Have you ever done Commander sealed?
Y- The commanders, like, as in you build a commander deck out of sealed packs.
Essentially, yeah. I did like a few months ago. There was a Trevor Project charity
Yeah.
event in Rochester, which isn't that far from me. And you got
Y-
like 17 packs, and you build a commander deck out of them, and you can trade with other people at your table as you're building your decks. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Have you ever done anything like that?
I have wanted to do that for a long time because I've seen it and it looks like a blast. Like when I was telling you earlier, we had a boxing league at the early part of pandemic, which was a lot like that, but not quite as chaotic as the
Hmm.
amount of packs you got. But it's like we start with the box, and then every couple of weeks you crack open two random packs from another set and you add them in. But,
Oh,
like, Commander Sealed is such a fun idea because it's exactly the kind of commander I wanna play, where it's like, "Look, man, I've got 3 packs of M12 and a Lorwyn. What am I gonna do with this? Let's go. I'm on Titans."
yeah.
Like, it just seems like hella fun. It
Oh,
seems
it
really,
was
really
it
fun.
was super, super fun. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, maybe that format will. I mean, I don't think it'll ever be big like Commander, but hopefully it
Yeah.
keeps getting more popular
Maybe
because
if
I
we get
think
more
people should
events.
try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Commander Seals is such a cool idea, and I really wanna go, but Rochester is very far from the Bay Area,
You're on
and they
the yeah, it's close for me, but you're on the very far
yeah,
side of the
and,
country for
like,
that one.
I think it was right around my wedding anniversary or something, and my wife's like, "No, you're not going to New
Yeah.
York
Yeah.
to play
Yeah.
cards."
Can't
That's
can't blame her for that, yeah.
yeah. Anyways, man, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a really interesting discussion. It went all over the place. It was really fun.
Yeah. It was super fun. Thanks for having me back. Anytime, Shivam. Like, it's always a blast to get to talk, so.
Well, I mean, you're always busy, so I like that during at least Christmas break time, we can at least grab you while you're on your vacation.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
the timing worked out great.
awesome. If people wanted to find you, your stuff, or your content, where could they go?
MTG Goldfish on YouTube or the website.com, or Saffron Olive. Those are the two places on social media. I'm Saffron Olive on Twitter and so forth. So
And you stream, like, daily or close to it, right? Like, except weekends.
between YouTube videos and Twitch streams, there's something pretty much every day that's either going up on YouTube or live on Twitch. Yeah.
Sweet. And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gear Booty Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. on Tuesdays, or at YouTube on Thursdays. Thank you to my editor, EK. And remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.